For week 7, lecture 4 of the introductory animal physiology course, we will delve into the topic of acid-base balance. This lecture will cover the mechanism by which the body maintains the pH within a narrow range, which is critical for normal cellular function. Key topics will include the role of kidney in pH regulation, how the renal system contributes to acid-base homeostasis, buffer systems in the body, mechanisms that help neutralize acids and bases to maintain a stable pH, then respiratory and metabolic components of acid-base balance, the interplay between the respiratory rate and the metabolic processes in regulating pH levels, disorders of the acid-base balance, conditions such as acidosis and alkalosis, their causes, physiological impacts, and compensatory mechanisms. So this lecture builds on previous concepts in the excretory system module, providing a more integrated and understanding of the physiological process that sustain balance and stability in the body. Let us go into the lecture. As you all know that the normal pH range of the arterial blood is 7.4. How we got this pH of the normal arterial blood is 7.4. This is when we say pH, that means it is related with the hydrogen ion. So how will you define a pH? First of all, pH is defined as the negative logarithm of hydrogen ion concentration. So if you take concentration of the hydrogen ions, what is the normal hydrogen ion concentration is that 40 milli equivalent per liter. So if you convert this into a equivalent per liter, then it will become 0.000000004, right? So if you take the negative log of this, then you will get 7.4. So that is how the pH of the normal arterial blood is told as 7.4. Let us see some of the important definitions or the terminologies related with the acid-base balance. The first is that acid. What is an acid? Acid is a substance that donate a hydrogen ion to a solution. Example for this acids, the strong acid example is that HCl, where the example for a weak acid is that carbonic acid, H2CO3. Let us come to the base. What is a base? Base is a substance. On the other hand, it accepts the hydrogen ion from a solution. So the strong base will have a group of OH. Remember, wherever you are finding the OH, that means it is a strong base. Whereas if you see the group of HCO3 minus, the bicarbonate ion, then it will be considered as a weak base. The next important terminology is that acidemia. So emia means it is related with the blood. Okay, anemia, right? The same way acidemia. That means depression of the blood pH below the normal range is called as acidemia. That means below 7.4 you can say, then it will become acidemia. Then when it is above the 7.4, then it will become an alkalemia, the pH range. Next terminology is that acidosis. Acidosis means it is the disturbance caused by either excess addition of acid or removal of base from the extracellular fluid. So whenever there is an addition of acid or removal of base from the extracellular fluid, then that will lead to a condition called as acidosis. Then alkalosis is quite opposite. That means it is either the addition of excess base or loss of acid from the ECF, then that will lead to a condition called as alkalosis. Now, whenever in the disease condition, if you see, there will be an unusual addition or loss of acids and bases in the body will takes place. So when this takes place in the body, that leads to the disturbances. So acid-base balance will become acid-base imbalance. So these acid-base imbalances, when it persists, then to combat that, body will perform three important mechanisms by which it will try to bring it back to the normal. So what are those? The first mechanism is that chemical buffering. So this is, you can say it as a first line of acid-base balance. That means defense also you can say in this case, acid-base balance. And second is that with the help of the lungs, that is respiratory adjustment, where it targets only the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Then third one is that kidney system, the renal system it involves. Now in this, it will either it causes the excretion of the H plus ions or the HCO3 minus, the bicarbonate ions. Okay, so the first is that chemical buffers, that will be first line of defense, which will be stimulated immediately if any type of imbalances happens. Whereas if you could not able to bring it back to normal, the homeostasis cannot be achieved, then in that case the respiratory system will come and help, will take over, where it will be try to act within few minutes. Then that is called as second line of defense, the respiratory system. The second line of defense also fails, then what will happen? Then the final defense will come, that is the kidney. So it is always, whenever a problem comes, the first is that they will used to call the local police, then if it cannot be controlled, then they will call the paramilitary, then they will go for the army or the military, right? So the same way the body also will have the different line of defenses for anything, any type of disturbances will take place in the body. Now let us see the different way of metabolic production of the acids as well as the bases. So the first one is that carbonic acid. The carbonic acid, how it is formed? This is formed by reacting, the carbon dioxide reacts with water and then it produces the carbonic acid. Now this carbon dioxide is volatile in nature. So due to that reason, the carbonic acid also, you can say, it is volatile in nature. As this carbon dioxide is quickly expired through the respiratory system, hence the carbonic acid is called as a volatile acid. Whereas there are some other types of acids also are present, that is called as non-volatile acids. So these non-volatile acids, such as strong non-volatile acid is H2SO4. From where this H2SO4 is formed? It is formed from the sulfur containing amino acids such as methionine and then cysteine. So methionine and then cysteine, these are the sulfur containing amino acids from where the H2SO4 is formed. Then the phosphoric acid. The phosphoric acid is formed from the hydrolysis of the phosphodiesters. Phosphodiesters, that is from the phosphoproteins and the phospholipids. Then third is that ammonium chloride. Ammonium we have seen in the last class, that is highly toxic, due to that reason it will be converted into less toxic substance such as urea and uric acid in the avian renal system we have seen. So the ammonium chloride, as here also you see, it is a toxic, hence it will goes to the liver where it will get synthesized into urea, which is a less toxic substances. Now the next is the urine of the herbivore. The nature of the herbivore urine, if you take, it is rich in potassium ion as well as the bicarbonate ion. That is the nature of the herbivore's urine in general. Next, we'll see about the ammonia and then ureogenesis, how urea is produced, and then how the acid-base balance is achieved with this mechanism. So that we will see. So whenever an animal which takes the protein-rich diet or the amino acid-rich diet, then the end product will be production of the ammonia. Fine. Ammonia is, again I am telling that it is a highly toxic, right? Due to that reason, this ammonia will react with the carbonic acid. From where this carbonic acid is produced? It is produced by reacting with the carbon dioxide plus H2O, or you can say even it can be produced by reacting hydrogen ion reacts with the bicarbonate HCO3 minus, then also it can yield carbonic acid. It is a right example of a weak acid. So it will react with the ammonia and then it forms the ammonium ion. So ammonium ion, again it is toxic, right? So this ammonium ion is formed by liberating the bicarbonate ion from this equation, chemical reaction. Now the maximum part of the ammonium that will be used by the liver. So what it will do in the liver? This ammonium will react with the carbon dioxide in the liver and it forms or it liberates the hydrogen ions, 2 hydrogen ions, and then urea. Okay, urea is less toxic, and then with the liberation of the water molecule. So on the other hand, the little amount of the ammonia will get converted into glutamine, where this glutamine reacts with the hydrogen ions, the two hydrogen ions from this reaction, the excess hydrogen ion, it will react and then it will carry to kidney, where again it will be excreted as the ammonium. So that means what? The overall effect of the ammonium is nil here. It is produced and then it get liberated, it is released, right? Now see, the high toxic ammonia will get converted into urea here, that is less toxic. Now what happened to this bicarbonate ion? This bicarbonate ion will react with the hydrogen ions, where and then it liberates the carbonic acid. So this carbonic acid will be reutilized here for the conversion of the ammonia into ammonium and then ultimately to the urea. So this is how the ammonia is getting converted into urea, and then it try to maintain the acid base balance. So the first one is that chemical buffers. We told there are different line of defense. The first line of defense I told it is a chemical buffers. So these chemical buffers usually present in the ECF system. The chemical buffer system consists of mixture of the weak acids as well as its conjugate bases. Okay. Now let us see the addition of the strong acid here. The strong acid is that H2SO4. How this H2SO4 is formed? I told that the sulfur containing amino acids, right? Two amino acids. From there this H2SO4 is formed. So this H2SO4, if it will be written as 2H++ SO4 2-, right? It can be written. Now this H2SO4 reacts with a weak base. Now here it is a strong acid. Whenever in the body strong acid is there, it will try to react with the weak base so that it can able to produce, or it can able to convert the strong acid into a weak acid, by which it will create a less disturbance to the system, or it will produce less toxic to the body. So the H2SO4 reacts with a weak base. Weak base means I told which will bear the bicarbonate ion compound. So it will react with the two bicarbonate and then ultimately it forms a weak acid, that is carbonic acid H2CO3, by liberating the SO4 2-. So this is how the buffer system works. So whenever there is a strong acid comes, it will react with weak base and then it ultimately it forms a that converts the strong acid into a weak acid, so that the effect on the body will be very less by the acid. That means it decreasing the virulence of that acids as well as the base. Similarly, the strong base are there means it is reacts within the weak acid and the strong base will be converted into a weak base, that it loses that virulence, right? So the relationship between the pH and the mixture of acids and bases is given by the Anderson-Hasselbalch equation. Anderson-Hasselbalch equation, right? So the pK, next important terminology here you need to understand in the acid base balance is that pK of any system. pK is nothing but it is a pH at which the acid and base of the buffer system is in equal concentration. So when the point at which the acid and base in a buffer system equals, then that pH, the point you can call it as a pK of that buffer system. So the principal buffer systems of the blood are of the first one is that bicarbonate buffer system, then plasma protein buffer system, then phosphate buffer system, and the last one is hemoglobin buffer system. First we will see the bicarbonate buffer system. The primary buffer system present in the blood and extracellular fluid. See here the blood and ECF, the primary buffer system is bicarbonate buffer system. Then what are the components? You can see it in the bicarbonate buffer system. There are weak acid as well as weak base. In the last slide I told you that the buffer system, it is a mixture of the weak acids and its conjugate base, the same. That's why here I wrote the component. The weak acid component of this buffer is that carbonic acid H2CO3, and weak base component of this buffer is that sodium bicarbonate. See here bicarbonate is there, right? So first we'll see about the H2CO3. H2CO3, how it forms? In the earlier slides also I showed to you the carbon dioxide. How this carbon dioxide is formed? This carbon dioxide is produced as a result of the cellular respiration. So the oxygen will be inhaled and as a result the carbon dioxide will be liberated as a result of the cellular respiration. So this carbon dioxide reacts with the water molecule which is present inside the cell, and in the presence of the carbonic anhydrase enzyme, it forms the carbonic acid H2CO3. Now this reaction is very slow reaction, the carbonic acid formation, and for this reaction it requires the carbonic acid. Remember, this carbonic acid is present abundantly in the lung alveoli as well as the epithelium of the renal tubules. So these are the two places where the carbonic anhydrase is present abundantly, where there won't be any problem in the formation of the H2CO3, that is the carbonic acid. Then on the other way around, I told you, right, the carbonic acid can be formed by reacting the H plus ion with the bicarbonate ion, and then it produces the carbonic acid H2CO3. This side reaction favors the carbonic acid production, but the reverse one will be in a very small amount will be produced. That means the carbonic acid cannot be dissociated into H++ bicarbonate. In a lesser amount only, this type of reaction it forms, reverse one. Whereas the H++ bicarbonate, it will react and it forms the, favors the carbonic acid production. Now, what is the pKa of the bicarbonate buffer system? It is 6.1. What is the normal pH of the arterial blood? I told it is 7.4. See the difference. It is 6.1 and 7.4, right? But still, this bicarbonate buffer system is one of the best system compared with the other system. Now, next component is that weak base, that is sodium bicarbonate. How the sodium bicarbonate is formed? The sodium bicarbonate will be liberated into sodium and then bicarbonate ion, but the reverse will be in a very small amount only the sodium bicarbonate is formed. That means sodium bicarbonate, it will be easy for the sodium bicarbonate to dissociate, but the reaction of the sodium and the bicarbonate is very less. Now, how the system works, the bicarbonate buffer system in total it works. First reaction is that carbon dioxide, as a result of cellular respiration, it reacts with the water inside the cell and it forms the carbonic acid. Clear? Then next you have seen that hydrogen ion reacts with the bicarbonate ion HCO3 minus, that also favors the carbonic acid production. Clear? But the reverse is very less, right? The small amount. As the concentration of the H plus ion is very small, let us consider. So this bicarbonate ion will also reacts with the sodium and it produces sodium bicarbonate. See, I told there is a weak acid H2CO3 and weak base, that is NaHCO3. Both of them is present in this reaction. So that means what? This is how the bicarbonate buffer system works. You can see the relationship, right? It produces H2CO3 also, simultaneously it favors the production of the NaHCO3 also. Then the bicarbonate buffer system, how it works you have seen. Now what will happen in the body when there is a strong acid produces and then strong base produces? As I said, the strong acid reacts with a weak base to produces the weak acid, right? So the example for that strong acid is HCl. So it dissociates into H++ Cl minus. Then this H plus ions will react with the bicarbonate ion and then it forms the H2CO3. This is possible, right? Weak acid. That means now the strong acid become the weak acid, H2CO3, carbonic acid is formed. Now this carbonic acid will dissociate into carbon dioxide plus water. Now what will happen? The carbon dioxide concentration increases. In the carbon dioxide, where it will increase in the blood. So that means what? This carbon dioxide, it won't go like that. It will go as a partial pressure of carbon dioxide. So once the partial pressure of carbon dioxide increases in the blood, then in excess, then it will stimulates or it triggers the lungs to go for hyperventilation. Hyperventilation means increased respiration, right? So hyperventilation, that means more carbon dioxide will be exhaled out. So this is how it eliminates the carbon dioxide from the ECF. Fine. Now let us go with the strong base. Please understand the chemical reaction so that it will be helpful in the next slides. where this all the explanations I may not able to give. Then in the strong base, the OH minus, I told you it should bear the OH minus, strong base. So example is that sodium hydroxide, NaOH, where it reacts with a weak acid, that is H2CO3. Then it ultimately forms a weak base, that is sodium bicarbonate, NaHCO3, and liberates water. Now this causes the decrease H2CO3. See here, as the H2CO3 is utilized here, due to that reason the concentration of the carbonic acid decreases. So more carbon dioxide will react with water and it forms the H2CO3, because the carbonic acid concentration increases because of this reaction, right? So carbon dioxide will react with water and more carbonic acid will be formed. So as a result, there will be decreased carbon dioxide in the blood. So more carbonic acid is produced here. Due to that reason, the carbon dioxide is utilized. Due to that, as a result, the carbon dioxide concentration decreases in the blood. On the other hand, it increases the bicarbonate ion part in the blood. Remember, fine? Because this the carbonic acid can be liberated into H++ bicarbonate, HCO3 minus, right? Or otherwise you can say this carbonic acid is used here for the production of the NaHCO3, the weak base. So due to that reason, the bicarbonate ion concentration increases in the blood and decreasing the carbon dioxide in the blood. Understand this properly. So as the carbon dioxide level, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide decreases in the blood, that inhibits the respiration. If the partial pressure of carbon dioxide level increases in the blood, then it causes hyperventilation, whereas the partial pressure of carbon dioxide decreases, then it causes hypoventilation. So it inhibits the respiration. That means it decreases the rate of carbon dioxide expiration, that is called as hypoventilation. But on the other hand, it will stimulate the kidney to secrete more bicarbonate, because the bicarbonate production is more in the blood. So it has to be eliminated out. So as a result, the renal system will come into play and releases or it excretes the bicarbonate from the blood as a compensatory mechanism. So in the first one, you have seen that where lungs played a major role. In the second one, the kidney played the compensatory role. Next is the phosphate buffer system. So phosphate buffer system, it play a major role in the renal tubular fluid and the interstitial fluid. You need to remember where which system play a major role, right? Then here also the weak acid and weak base component is there. So weak acid component, that is monosodium dihydrogen orthophosphate, that is a weak acid. Weak base is the disodium hydrogen phosphate, that is weak base. Now let us see how the strong acid reacts with the weak base and how it produces a weak acid. So HCl is a strong acid. It reacts with the disodium hydrogen phosphate, where it produces monosodium dihydrogen orthophosphate, that is a weak acid, by liberating the sodium chloride. And then the strong base reacts with weak acid. The strong base, I told you, it should bear OH minus, that is why NaOH we have taken strong base. That reacts with the monosodium dihydrogen orthophosphate and it liberates the disodium hydrogen phosphate, that is a weak base, by liberating a water molecule. Okay. What is the pK of the phosphate buffer system? It is 6.8. That means it is almost equivalent, nearing to the 7.4. Before one was, it is 6.1. Now the protein buffer system, here we have hemoglobin, which is more in intracellular, performs its maximum function. Amino acid buffer, which will be present both intracellular and extracellular. Plasma proteins, it is present in ECF. Now the buffers, because it contains large number of acid as well as the basic groups. These protein buffers contains large number of acidic as well as the basic groups. But on the other hand, the protein buffer system, it is not a good buffers, but the cellular proteins coupled with the cellular phosphate buffers, then you can call it as a good buffering ability. You can find it in the protein buffers. Otherwise, it is not a good buffer system. The pK of the protein buffer system is near to the 7.4. It is not exactly 7.4. Then next important terminology in this acid-base balance is that isohydric principle. Isohydric principle means it is the all the buffer system have to will perform its function cohesively. That means buffers of the blood and the body fluids, it won't act independently, it has to act. It will take the help of the other buffer system to neutralize and to bring the homeostasis, right? So they act together to bring the homeostasis. So this principle is called as isohydric principle. You can define this one in other way, that buffers buffer the buffers. So this is the other way of defining the isohydric principle. So that means all the buffer system have to act together so that the homeostasis can be brought and it will bring back to the pH to the normal. Now the next is the respiratory system. Respiratory system, I already told, it can able to perform its function by either increase or decreasing the ventilation. That means hyperventilation or hypoventilation. Whereas in the kidney, it is by simply excreting the basic urine or the acidic urine by H plus or the HCO3 minus, right? So how this increased H plus secretion will takes place? Whenever there is an increased ECF carbon dioxide concentration, or when there is an acidemia or hypercapnia, that is due to the decreased intracellular pH, right? Then when there be a decreased H plus secretion, when there is a decrease in ECF carbon dioxide concentration, or when there is an alkalemia or the hypocapnia. Now this is about the balance. Now whenever some disturbances happens, okay, that is called as acid base disturbances. When there is a pH increase or decrease, then that will be called as acid base disturbance. Abnormal increase or decrease of the bases causes metabolic acidosis or alkalosis, that is a disturbance, and the abnormal increase or decrease of the partial pressure of carbon dioxide causes respiratory acidosis and alkalosis. So these two conditions, one is related with the bases, that is bicarbonate, and the second one, it is related with the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Remember these two important points. So first is that metabolic acidosis, it is the addition of strong acid or the loss of base from the extracellular fluid that causes metabolic acidosis. The conditions such as diabetes mellitus and ketosis will lead to the metabolic acidosis condition. Metabolic alkalosis, potassium deficiency or the persistent vomiting leads to the gain of base by the extracellular fluid, or loss of strong acid from the extracellular fluid leads to a condition called as metabolic alkalosis. Respiratory acidosis, mostly seen in the pneumonia and emphysema, where the rate of carbon dioxide production exceeds the loss of the carbon dioxide by lungs. This results into the respiratory acidosis. The increased concentration of the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood is called as hypercapnia, right? Respiratory alkalosis takes place in a very less amount, or even you may not find the respiratory alkalosis condition at all. So that's why I have not discussed here. Now let us see the main buffer system as such. In interstitial fluid, bicarbonate ion play a major role compared with others. In blood, bicarbonate again, whereas the intracellular fluid. Then proteins play a major role, whereas in the protein, the phosphate play a major role than the other buffer systems. Now, the arterial blood, in summarizing, either it will be acidosis or alkalosis. Acidosis, I told you, any type of disturbances, it will be expressed in terms of the partial pressure of carbon dioxide or in terms of the bases, that is bicarbonate ion. So when the bicarbonate ion concentration goes below 24 milliequivalent per liter, then it will be called as metabolic acidosis. Okay, when the partial pressure of carbon dioxide goes above 40 mmHg, then it will be called as respiratory acidosis. Whenever there is a metabolic acidosis, that means the buffer system could not able to perform its function, that is why the metabolic acidosis taken place. As a result, the respiratory compensation will take place. That is the second line of defense, where it will try to bring the partial pressure of carbon dioxide brings down to the lesser than the 40 mmHg. Here the respiratory acidosis, that means the second line of defense is there already, so that means it is failed. So the third line of defense, renal compensation, will take place by bringing bicarbonate ions, which it increases the secretion by increasing the concentration to more than 24 mmHg. Coming to the alkalosis, again in terms of bicarbonate and partial pressure of carbon dioxide goes above 24 and below 40 mmHg. So bicarbonate means you can tell it is a metabolic, and partial pressure in terms means it is respiratory. So metabolic, that means buffer system fails, so respiratory compensation will come, that means it causes the partial pressure of carbon dioxide more than 40 mmHg, whereas here it is respiratory, second line of defense failed, so the third line of defense, respiratory compensation, comes, the bicarbonate ions goes less than the 24 mmHg renal compensation. So As such, if you take in the normal level, the pH is 7.4 and the hydrogen ion, it is 40 milliequivalent per liter, and partial pressure of carbon dioxide normal level is 40 mmHg and bicarbonate ion is 24 milliequivalent per liter. This is the normal range, right? Now, in the respiratory acidosis condition, the pH goes down. Again, in the metabolic acidosis condition, in acidosis means the pH goes down, whereas in alkalosis condition, the pH increases above 7.4, and respiratory alkalosis again it increases. Let us come in terms of the hydrogen ion concentration. Acidosis means obviously the hydrogen ion concentration increases, whereas in the alkalosis the hydrogen ion concentration decreases. Let us come to the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. This is in terms of, when we say partial pressure of carbon dioxide, it is related with the respiratory. Respiratory means respiratory acidosis and the respiratory alkalosis. So respiratory acidosis, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide goes above 40 mmHg. In respiratory alkalosis, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide goes below 40 mmHg. Then in the terms of metabolic acidosis and alkalosis, it is in terms of bases, that means bicarbonate ion, where the metabolic acidosis, the concentration of the bicarbonate ion goes less than the 24 milliequivalent per liter, whereas metabolic alkalosis, where the base level, that means bicarbonate level, goes above 24 milliequivalent per liter. So with that, I am summarizing that what we have seen some terminologies: the metabolic production of acids and bases, how the ammonia urogenesis and acid base balance is interlinked, and then different bicarbonate buffer system, in that phosphate, protein, and then the role of respiratory system, second line of defense, and the role of renal system, we have seen the third line of defense. Then we have seen the disturbances of the acid base imbalances, you can say the disturbances such as metabolic acidosis, metabolic alkalosis, respiratory acidosis, and the respiratory alkalosis. With that, we complete the renal system. Thank you.